Okay. I'll move fast.
And they hire SWA groups where you do it. They do that. So, plant some trees, put in some planters, take the glare and reflection down off the building. I don't know if that's better or worse. To be honest with you. The idea of really dealing with how people want to use it, does that give it more meaning? Is there a bigger sense of meaning that was lost in the more or less sarcastic joke that you played on it? Don't know, that's Harlem Plaza's reference in the article. My favorite land artist, Osamu Noguchi, Japanese-American, designed Park Plaza, which is our major civic space in Detroit, Michigan. This is California scenarios. This is his interpretation of the whole state of California in a small plaza about as big as this room in 310 Ballpark. He's the one who proposed a face on the moon, if you've never seen that. So literally turning the moon into a sculpture. A brilliant designer. But in this case, referencing back to Olin and to the tribe, because tribe references this project as well as an example of the archaic, which is to say, in the California scenario, he acknowledges, the pre-industrial, pre-Western civilizations that come up. The pyramid, the arroyos, the Sierra Nevada mountains, the deserts, a lot of the elements that are developed in sort of a Cubist painting style, a Cubist tradition, which is to say, rather than a composition of the whole, you're encouraged to experience each piece in your relationship from one piece to another. So it makes the viewer a dynamic participant instead of a static landscape that you experience, where this is an alley or this is a grove of trees. Then your position between these elements, sculptural elements, changes every time you move. At least that's the theory. So lots of moments, that evoke different spirits to it. Unclear whether it's successful or not, because very few people have actually ever seen this in person. A lot of people have seen the photographs, but that's one of the examples they say.
Where is it installed?
California scenario is, I'll get the location for you.
It's called California Scenario?
California scenarios.
I mean, so is it like, when you not specifically, like in a courtyard of an office building? Or
It's in a courtyard of an office building. I'm unsure exactly where, but I can go. Right. You all know this. Right. So in terms of meaning, this is a major change, at least in our country's history, in terms of how we deal with certain issues. Up until this is Vietnam War, Washington, D.C., Zach Miley, choosing college. I don't know if people saw First Blood, right? Sylvester Stallone movie. That's just a good movie, right? Like just as movie making, it's a good movie. It gets a little crazy at the end, as you all know. It gets worse through the series, like Rambo and Rambo Part 2 and all that. First Blood is really good, right? So what it deals with is a Vietnam vet who's homeless, right? He wanders into this mountain town and they pick on him, and then he goes Rambo on him. But that's the era that this was designed, which is there's still a lot of hostility, a lot of tension about Vietnam. Vietnam in America is seen as really the only war that America lost. We fought somebody else. So we saw the people that fought there as traitors, as people who failed. And during the 60s, during the height of the Vietnam War, that was the counterculture, and a lot of protests, social unrest in this sense. They got dogged out. So nobody wanted to acknowledge them at all. Now, if you go to Washington, D.C., and you go to the National Mall, which was designed as a memorial area. It used to be a swamp. They filled it all in to put in memorials to our history. All the memorials are white marble above ground in heroic proportions based on Greek and Roman traditions, and some Masonic stuff. So that's where the obelisk comes in, Egyptian history dealing with Washington. This is the only one that goes below ground. It's black, right? Instead of elevating each individual based on rank, presents the names in chronological order from when they got killed in Vietnam. So there's an explosive video that, if you've never seen it, it's well worth it, dealing with this contested meeting of Maya Lin trying to make this case to Vietnam war vets. They're cussing around. They're just giving it business. It's not how they wanted to be remembered. They saw it as an abomination. These massive hearings, which is really kind of brutal. The concession was this piece, right, in terms of meaning. He said, okay, you can build that wall if you want to, but we want something more figurative because we can relate to that. Right? This looks like somebody I served with, or this looks like somebody that I can relate to. As long as I get that, you can do your damn wall. That's literally what they said. But we know what happened after this thing was built. So this is sort of the eruption of minimalism as a design pattern. We'll deal with Keenan minimalism in a second. But this wall, there's a wall that tours the whole country now. It was in Raleigh, I think, last year, over in the National Mall. That's a version of this. It just rolls around. It's like a cliche now. What's really interesting is going through all the monuments with my father, who had never gone to any of the monuments before, even though he's a native of D.C. We walked all of them in one day, right, which I would not recommend. But we were right behind a group of kids the whole time. So we go to the Franklin Delano Roosevelt Memorial, designed by Lawrence Hall. And that's before they took off all the water features. As soon as they saw the water, they took off running. They're climbing up the rocks, playing in the water, throwing stuff at each other, going up and down the hills, like in the war room, right? So they didn't get the meaning of that. Then they get to Korean War, and they say, this is weird, we're getting out of here. You get to Vietnam, you start walking down Vietnam, right? And you start here, and you're at ground level. Right? You slowly walk down. Right about there, your head goes below ground level. And you can't hear any other sound around. So they're running, they get to that stop, and they look, they get quiet. And they start going single file. Then you start looking at the wall. Then you start touching it. Then you start seeing people interacting with it down there. Their whole behavior changed, right? If I said anything to them. So Lorion's challenge about whether or not the design intent and the user experience are related. And Madeline didn't talk to anybody. She said this was all kind of whole cloth out of her brain. They adapted to this particular form. Now, as soon as they got to the other side, as soon as you get to the axis, you can see the Washington Monument and start rising out. They got out to go. But that's actually meaning. He references Rich Haig in his article, right? So this is the gas result. So anybody who's into post-industrial landscape, how do you convey the meaning of that? He's the guy. In this country right now. He copied some precedents that are Germany that we'll talk about a little bit later in class. But really a really prominent sound in Seattle where they were talking about ripping this whole thing down and putting it in an old stadium park. He said, no, part of the meaning in the history of this place is the fact that these, it was a gas refinery here. This was a part of Seattle's economy. We can't destroy it. And in his mind, that was going to be a playground, right? So there's going to be big slides and climbing structures and that sort of thing. And it's a brownfield. It's one of the first brownfield park reclamations in the country, I would say. It's very simple, right? So you got a switchback, you got a mound here, which gives you a prominent view out to the sound and out to the city of Seattle. And you got these ruins here, right? Beloved too much, had it fenced off. Keep you from playing there. I'll show you in the Ruhr River Valley in Germany, Duisburg Nord, where it's that times 10, and it really is a playground. So it's possible, but Rich Haig's idea in terms of meaning and place, acknowledging some of the dirty laundry of our past, but also capable of the refined side of landscape architecture, right? Below Delaware. So this is just a little secret project, working with a super rich client, incrementally, bit by bit, garden room by garden room. If you've seen Batman Forever, it's not a good movie, but this is Bruce Wayne's pool. So Batman and Robin are talking, they're in front of this pool in Seattle, or Gotham is supposed to be New York, and now I'm just confused. But what's interesting is, the green wall, which takes away the eye level view, but captures the reflection of the canopy, which kind of mirrors it and focuses you on what's really important, the fact that you're in the trees. Borrowing from multiple cultural traditions, some of the references you can make out. Extremely lush. Seattle is just blessed because of all that rain. Maybe the most famous move there, the moss garden, where everything that you expect to be ground covering grass is literally moss, right, that they cultivated and grew on site. So, in terms of meaning, this is referenced as archaic as well, in terms of tapping into that part of you that adapted over thousands of years to different kinds of climates, and you have this sort of emotional reaction to when you see these kinds of things and experience them. I don't 100% buy it. People come from different places, but it is beautiful. It is beautiful. To the king of minimalism, Peter Walker. This is a pizza that I walk by every day. I did an internship at Carroll Johnson Associates in Cambridge. Lived near the Cambridge Hospital, and the shortest distance between the two was through Harvard Yard. So the Tanner Fountain, which is literally a circle stone that bridges, at that time, the asphalt walkway and grass, borrowed from artists. So minimalist art movement is what informs Peter Walker's work and those that are artists mid-century that are really frustrated that no one really ever saw their work because they were closer to these galleries. So they saw galleries as this elitist structure that prevented the public from really doing what they dealt with. But when they moved outside, one of the advantages of the galleries is you can control the boundaries to focus on the work. So people like Robert Smithson and Nancy Holt and Donald Judd and Carl Andre and Richard Serra and that whole ilk decided that they needed to make things so big and so bold and so clear that it could compete with the noise, literally the noise all around in the landscape. So what you found are sort of a focus on geometric forms, period materials, a certain kind of scale that could compete with all of the distractions around it. So Tanner Fountain does that on a certain level. So in terms of seasonal differences, being able to see the shadows cast in winter, it has misters, so at night, that's true, it does do that. It kind of glows, and people sit on it. Now, it's brutally hot out here, right? So if you're into the comfort or the human use component of it, it's probably a big fit. You can imagine meat whacking between these rocks and the grass.